Hello and welcome to the Night Sky Reader. I'm here with a story to help you relax, meditate, or gently drift to sleep. Tonight, White Thread on Indigo, a Sashiko mending story. Settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin. The first white stitch goes into the indigo cloth and disappears. For a second, there is only the dark surface of the futon cover under the lamp, her left hand holding it steady, the long needle angled down, the day still quick in her fingers. Then the point rises again a little farther along the chalked line, and the white thread comes back into sight. It lies there in a short bright dash, almost too small to matter, while the folded futon waits beside her on the floor, already turned toward sleep. She had meant to do only a little before bed. The thinning square near the middle of the cover has been catching her eye for several nights now, a place worn soft by weight and warmth, the indigo faded slightly at the center, and the weave beginning to look open when she lifts it toward the light. Tonight she spread the cover out just to check it. That had been the plan. Check it, decide where the repair should go, maybe set out the thread for tomorrow. But the room is quiet, and the lamp has made a small circle for her on the floor. And once the needle is threaded, the first stitch asks for the next. Her hands are still moving in the clipped way they learned from the day. 3 tabs still open on her phone when she finally set it down, a decision left unfinished before the building emptied. She feels it in the first pull of thread, in the speed with which she reaches for the next point. Not agitation exactly, more like momentum that has nowhere else to go. She catches herself already leaning toward completion, as if neatness might be wrestled from the cloth by getting through it fast enough. The futon cover does not reward that kind of thinking. Its cotton is dense where it is still strong, soft where it has thinned, and honest everywhere. Under the lamp, the worn square shows itself clearly. It will need more than a few careless stitches. It will need to be set properly, held flat, followed rather than hurried. She lets the thread rest across her knuckles and looks at the cloth again. Around her, the room has almost finished becoming night. She shifts back from the first impatient stitch and arranges what she needs with quieter hands. The futon cover comes fully across the low table, its indigo field spreading past the warm circle of light and into shadow. She smooths it with both palms, once from the center outward, then again more slowly, feeling the cool cotton warm under her skin. The worn square sits where she remembered, not dramatic, not ruined, simply thinner than the rest, enough to need care if the bedding is to last another season. A small porcelain dish waits near her knee. In it lie 2 more needles already threaded with white cotton, their loops pale against the glazed bottom. Beside the dish is a sliver of tailor's chalk, and the faint geometry she marked earlier, when there was still daylight in the window. The lines are soft and powdery on the indigo, a simple hemp leaf grid laid over the weakened patch. Nothing ornate, just a structure to follow, something repeated enough times to become steady. She adjusts the cloth so the grain sits straight. One edge had drifted under itself. She lifts it, settles it again, and checks the tension with the flats of her fingers. Not stretched, not slack. Flat enough that the stitches can sit in the cloth instead of dragging it out of shape. The lamp hums very faintly. From somewhere beyond the walls comes the softened passing of a car on a wet street. Then nothing for a while. The boards under the rug answer with one small settling sound. She notices, with mild surprise, how many quiet noises had been hidden all along under the louder arrangement of the day. She picks up the long Sashiko needle again. This time she does not send it straight through and pull at once. She rocks the tip in and out along the marked line, loading several small running stitches onto the needle before drawing the thread through. The motion asks for a different pace. It cannot be forced without missing the spacing. The point rises, dips, rises, dips, white thread gathers behind her thumb. Then she pulls, and the little row appears in one smooth movement. She watches the stitches settle. Each dash of white against indigo has a measure to it. Each space between them matters as much as the stitch itself. The room seems smaller now, but in a good way. Contained, enough light for the cloth, enough dark around it to let the edges of the evening soften. She takes a breath without meaning to deepen it. The chalk lines wait. The dish of needles waits. The folded futon beside her is patient. Now the work can begin. She starts the first true row across the worn square, following the faint chalk mark from one side toward the other. At first, her fingers remember the earlier haste. The stitches go in evenly enough, but when she pulls the loaded needle through, she draws the thread a touch too firmly. The cloth gathers under the line. Not much, just a slight puckering, a drawn mouth in the smooth field of indigo. She sees it at once. Her hand stills above the table. The white thread, bright and new, has made its complaint plainly. She could ignore it. Once the cover is spread over the futon, the small pull might not show unless someone looked closely. But her palm already knows it would show in another way. A tug where there should be ease, a place that would not lie down flat. She eases the thread back with careful fingers. Not undoing, just loosening. The cotton gives a little. The gathered fabric relaxes. She smooths the row with the side of her hand and studies it in silence. She had come to the table treating the repair as one more thing left over from the day. The cloth answers only what actually reaches it, the pressure of her fingers, the angle of the needle, the force of the pull. She shifts her position. Her knees settle more comfortably under her. Her shoulders come down an inch. She lays her left hand open on the indigo to feel where the fabric wants to lie. The cotton is cool at the edges and warmer where the lamp has reached it. At the thinnest part of the square, the weave feels almost polished by use. Again she takes the needle. Again she loads it with several small running stitches. This time she watches the spaces. She lets the thread slide through rather than drawing it tight at once. When the row is complete, she gives only the slightest pull, enough to settle the white dashes into place. The cloth remains flat. Better. She continues to the end of the line and pauses there, fingers resting lightly on the work. Outside, a gust of wind touches something loose beyond the house and lets it go. The sound is brief. Then the lamp hum returns to being the nearest thing. The cover lies still beneath her hands, no longer resisting. Or perhaps she has stopped pushing against it. It is hard to say which comes first. The next row begins. After a while, the motions become small enough to trust. The needle enters and emerges. She loads 3 stitches, sometimes 4 where the cloth is firmer, then draws the white thread through with a steady pull. A row appears. She smooths it once with her palm. She turns the fabric slightly. The chalked geometry offers the next direction. The hemp leaf pattern gathers itself not as an image to admire, but as a path under her fingers, a sequence of lines that ask only to be followed in order. Her breathing changes before she notices it changing. It lengthens to match the work. In as the needle dips and rises, out as the thread slides home. There is no counting, no attempt to arrange herself. The rhythm arrives because the action leaves room for it. From time to time, the old impulse stirs. Finish this side, just a little faster and then done. It flickers through her like a habit of thought, thin now, not commanding. Each time the cloth gives the same answer. It asks for spacing, for tension, for aligning one row to the next. She sees the impulse and lets it pass the way the distant traffic passes, heard and then gone. The white stitches begin to hold their measure. Against the indigo they look clear and cool, not stark under the amber light, but quietly bright, as if the cloth has been waiting for this contrast. She follows one chalk line into a point, turns the cover, and continues back down another. The pattern grows by increments, a small fan of lines, a diamond, another edge repeated. Nothing happens all at once. She rubs the pad of her thumb over the rows she has finished. The stitches make the faintest relief, a texture more felt than seen. A pipe clicks once somewhere in the walls, then quiets. The lamp throws a steady pool over the table, the dish, the chalk, the arc of thread laid loosely near her wrist. Beyond that pool, the folded futon waits in softened shadow, its edges rounded by the dimness. The chalk has begun to blur under her fingers in places. She likes that. The marks have served their purpose. They remain clear enough to follow, but the pattern now has another guidance too, a growing sense of where the next line belongs. The worn part of the square sits directly under her palm. Here the fabric is different, softer, yes, and a little thinner, but also warmed by its history of use in a way the sturdier edges are not. She has slept under this cover for years, through 2 addresses, and knows exactly which kind of sleep wears cloth to this texture. She can feel where weight settled, where warmth lingered, where washing and drying and folding worked the cotton to a gentler finish. The indigo has lightened there by degrees so slight they would vanish at a distance. Up close, under the lamp, they make a small weather map of use. She adjusts her touch. In this softened center, she does not want the thread to dominate. She loads the needle with slightly shorter bites, guiding it through the thinner weave with care. The drag is different here, easier and more delicate. Her fingers respond without needing to name how. The folded futon beside her makes the object plain in a new way. This is not cloth for display. It is bedding. It exists to bear weight, to warm, to wrinkle and smooth again, to spend night after night close to sleeping bodies. The thinning square has not appeared through neglect. It has appeared through use, which is another way of saying through a life actually lived with it. She places a row of white stitches across the most worn part and smooths the cloth lightly after. The pattern begins to hold the center together, not tightly, just enough. There is tenderness in that, though she does not dwell on it. The tenderness stays in her hands, in the way she lifts the fabric at the edge before turning, in the way she does not tug when the thread catches, but backs the needle out and enters again along the grain. She works across the center and beyond it. The chalk lines meet and separate. White dashes accumulate. The pattern resolves slowly enough that there is never a single moment when it arrives. One section simply begins to answer another. What was thin becomes steadier. When she pauses, she can hear her own sleeve brush the table. She can hear the dry whisper of cotton against cotton as she turns the cover. She can hear the thread passing through and settling. The last section lies near the far edge of the worn square, where the cloth grows stronger. She follows the line, then the next, and sees a slight irregularity in the way the pattern has developed. One angle sits narrower than its partner on the other side, not enough to weaken anything, not enough to notice unless the eye is already close and attentive, but enough that she sees it. She stops with the needle halfway threaded and looks. To correct it for symmetry, she would need to unpick several rows, ease out the thread, lift the settled stitches, remark a line, redo the spacing. She can imagine the steps easily. It would also satisfy the old habit, the one that likes a thing not only sound but controlled, indisputable, tightened into correctness. Her fingers rest on the cloth while she considers it. The room makes no suggestion. The lamp hums. The window holds its dark. The futon remains folded, patient as ever. She lays her palm over the repaired square and feels what is actually there. The reinforcement is firm. The cloth lies flat. The worn center has been strengthened with rows of even running stitches that follow the true line of the fabric. The small irregularity is only that, a trace of the hand that made it, not damage, not failure. Simply evidence that this cover belongs to use and now to care. She does not unpick. She turns the cover once more and completes the final rows in the same steady measure she has earned over the course of the evening. Needle in, needle out, thread drawn through, palm smoothing the result. The white pattern closes over the square. One side answers the other as well as it needs to. The indigo beneath it remains itself. At the end, she takes the thread to the underside and ties it off neatly with small economical movements. The knot sits flat against the cotton. She trims the excess close. When she lifts the cover to check the back, the underside shows its own quiet map of labor. Shorter lines, crossings hidden from the top, structure without display. She turns it face up again. The repaired square rests under the lamp like a small field after rain, dark and refreshed, the white stitches bright but not sharp. She slides both hands over it from edge to edge. The surface is no longer thin in the same vulnerable way it was before. It has weight now. Not much, just enough to be felt. She sits for a moment longer without reaching for anything. Then the evening changes from making to use. She lifts the futon cover from the table and shakes it once with a careful low movement so the cotton can settle. The cloth opens and folds on itself with a softened sound. She spreads the futon out on the floor, the familiar weight unrolling into place. Layer by layer, the bedding takes its shape in the dim room, plain and welcoming. When she draws the cover over it, the repaired square comes to rest near the middle, white on indigo, visible if someone looked, easy to ignore if no one needed to. She lowers the lamp until the room grows gentler at the edges. The chalk, the dish, the spare needles fade into a warm blur. Night gathers the corners. The hum remains, but softer. Kneeling beside the futon, she presses her palm one last time over the repaired patch. The faint raised lines answer her touch. Thread meets cloth, cloth meets hand. The work is finished enough to hold. That is all it ever needed to be. When she lies down, the bedding receives her without ceremony. The cotton is cool at first, then quickly not. She turns onto one side and feels through the layers, the subtle difference where the reinforced square rests beneath her hand. Not hard, not lumpy, just a slight texture, a quiet reminder of the rows laid down one after another, while the room darkened and the house settled and her breathing changed to meet the pace of the needle. Above her, the cover rises in a small, dim tent and falls again as she exhales. The room is almost entirely quiet. A car passes far away and is gone. The boards hold, the lamp fades into the larger hush. Her hand loosens where it rests on the cover. Her shoulders settle. The patched square beneath the indigo holds its shape. In the darkening room, under the cloth she is mended with white thread. She lets the rest of the evening close. Thank you for spending this time with the Night Sky Reader. May your night be peaceful. Until next time, rest well.